From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven Erlandson, takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Hi, guys. You have reached the Badass Counseling Show. It is so great to have you here. My name is Sven Erlandson. I am known as the Badass Counselor, for lack of a better name. Evidently, people don't like my given name. As if my parents had poor judgment, as if they should have just named you Little Badass. Of course, that would have been a joke because that kid gets beat up even more on the playground for his pretentiousness. That being said, we have folks checking in from Australia, from Thailand. We've got Ontario. We've got Portland, Oregon. We've got Wisconsin, all points north, south, east, west. It's so great to have everyone tuning in. I am joined in studio for this lightning round episode where we take people's questions live. We are live right now on TikTok, on Facebook, and on YouTube. And I'm joined in studio by the smartest people I know, most creative, and just the people that make it happen. KC is over in the booth, silent this evening. And I've got Rob the Rocket sitting next to me. Rob, how are you today?
Wow, very nice of you to say those lovely things. We appreciate that. And you are here for all these fine people that are checking in, and I am here for you.
I couldn't ask for a better wingman to make sure it runs smoothly. Rob is the stud here, you guys. All right. I've got like 5 questions queued up already right here. We're going to bang, bang, bang on these. On TikTok, I've got Stephanie saying, Sven, I just broke up with my guy. Tell me something good. I need it today. All right. I'll tell you the easy good. The easy good is you had the courage to do something that took you a long time to find the courage to do. You went past that threshold of, I can't do it. I'm too scared. I don't want to do it. I love him. How could I let go of him? And you had the courage to walk into a hard thing. And anyone who has ever ended a relationship, not just had someone end a relationship with them, but when you've had to be the one to pull the trigger and end something where you really love the person, it's so fucking hard, but you had the courage to do it. And all of us who have been in that situation, we applaud you because we've been there. We know how hard it is. And every single one of us who's been there is saying, hey, we got you. You're doing great. Just keep going. It's just one foot in front of the other and just keep flushing out all your pain, all the sadness, but especially, you want to know what's going to make you stick? Anytime you're ending a relationship or you've ended a relationship, the thing that is going to keep you stuck more than anything else, yes, there's anger that needs to come out of you. Yes, there's sadness and betrayal and all those things. But the thing that's going to keep you stuck, most unable from moving forward, is not the bad feelings, but the good feelings. The love, the longing, the lust, the missing them, the waking up in the morning and the bed is empty. I know you're probably crying now at my saying that, but we've all been there. But this is one of those cases where getting the love out of you, flushing out the love and the happy feelings facilitates your moving forward. We so often think, I just need to flush out all the bad feelings. I need to journal about it. I need to write letters about it. No, it's often it's the good feelings that are keeping us stuck. For, November, it's on Badass Counseling and on the podcast and in the newsletter I send out. We're focusing in November on being in that struggle of should I or shouldn't I cut off a parent? And there are a lot of people struggling with that right now. And it's no new phenomenon. It's been around for decades, hundreds of years even, but especially since the 60s, right? So it's not new, but there are a lot of people struggling with it. And what keeps them stuck in a toxic relationship, perhaps with a parent who's always been toxic, is that there's still the love and there's still the longing for that love. And that's what's keeping you stuck, Stephanie, in all likelihood. And that's what you need to flush out of you. But I'm so proud of you for doing what you've done so far. Next question. All right. I've got, it just slipped on me. This little thing on Facebook, sometimes it slips away from you here. Christine asked the question. This is on Facebook. Would you date someone 12 years older? He is emotionally and mentally intelligent, but I can't get past his age. I'm actually going to bring in the expert on this one. You knew I was coming at you, Rob. Rob is going to, if you want to, Rob, otherwise I'll take it.
I'm here for you.
Go for it. The question is, would you date someone? This is Christine asking, date someone 12 years older. He is emotionally and mentally intelligent, but I can't get past his age. Mm-hmm. Go for it.
I certainly understand, and there are considerations there. I'm in a relationship with a woman who is even a little bit younger than that by a wider margin than she's describing. And when we first started going out, I was much younger, but I did say to her, look, there's this age difference. Are you going to be okay with that? I mean, the heart knows what the heart wants, and we were both very much in love. And she said, well, give me 10 good years. And I said, is that all? I said, give me 20 good years. So 20 years went by, and she said, I'd like to revise the number.
Back to 10.
Yeah. Well,
no, I'm teasing.
I understand that ship sailed.
Right.
But if you love each other, there is a way, but you should have your eyes wide open. For example, she was towards the end of her childbearing years, never had a child. And I said, if this is important to you, tell me right now. I've had children from a previous marriage. The reason I have 3 children is that I don't want 4. However, if that's important to you, tell me now, because I could never say no to that. But if you really want it, please tell me you only want 1, because I don't have the jam for that many. And she said, absolutely. She said, I do not want to have children, never have, and I don't ever want to. And now that we have a grandchild, she's absolutely sure she made the right decision. So
There
just
you go.
keep your eyes open. But if you love him and he loves her and she loves him, yeah, why not?
And then just to add on one little piece, and that is with clients that I've had who have wrestled with that. And every woman that I've been married to or in a serious relationship has been older than me, but only, well, presently it's 5 years, 4 years, whatever it is. And she's in her 60s, I'm in my 50s. But if you got issues, what you need to do, Christine, is you need to put it on paper. You need to write down what really are my issues. And especially you need to start working on what precisely are my fears. And what am I feeling? And you need to give credence to those in your own journaling and so forth, so that you can see it and be real with yourself, and then sit with it and just trust. You don't have to force an answer. Just sit with it. And when it's right, you'll know. You'll know. All right. Next question. Tammy says, I just have to say this. Tammy says, like butter, Rob.
Like butter, yes.
Like you. Your voice, your answer is beautiful. All right. Madeline asked the question, what is the best way to overcome a past narcissistic relationship? I've gone no contact. I seem to have a challenging time trusting again. So what you're really overcoming is not the past narcissistic relationship per se. What you're not able to overcome, or you're struggling with, is what's going on inside of you. And the reason you're not able to trust, or you're feeling challenged to trust, is because you have fear. The enemy of trust is fear. The enemy of opening up and being vulnerable, which is what real love requires. It requires the courage to open up, to show you who I really am. You guys have maybe heard me say before that we all know what brutal honesty is, right? People say, oh, I'm just brutally honest. And I think in my head, no, this person's a dick. Because brutal honesty is generally just, this is what's wrong with you, and that's what's wrong with you. And by the way, did I tell you over here that this is what's wrong with you? Brutal honesty is basically oftentimes just telling people what's wrong with them. I prefer a different thing, and I talk about this in my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup. I prefer radical honesty. If you want real relationships, it requires radical honesty. And radical honesty is where I'm not pointing out what's wrong with you. Yes, there are times when it's like, hey, you're hurting me. Or it's not okay for you to treat me that way. Those are called boundaries. But radical honesty is where I'm showing you not what's wrong with you, I'm showing you what's wrong with me. I'm showing you my fears. Showing you my insecurities. I'm showing you my aspirations, my wants, my dreams for my life. I'm showing you all the stuff that I'm most afraid to show you, because the reason we don't share shit with people is because we believe, or we are terrified that if I show you who I really am, you ain't going to like me. You're going to reject me, and then I'm going to be alone. So I'm going to not show you who I really am. So the real challenge is to overcoming the fear then. The real challenge that is you have to go into your fear. You have to welcome up those fears, and you got to get those out of you and see them on paper. And you got to ask yourself where they really came from. And if that fear came to pass, if I sense to see where it's going to hit the road, it's not 10 years into the relationship, it's 10 days into the relationship. It's 10 months into the relationship. That means when it feels shitty in small amounts, are you going to call it out, Madeline? Are you going to call it out? Because if you're not going to call it out when it's small, guess what? Small things become big things. So the way we trust ourselves isn't by opening up all at once. It's we listen to those small feelings and we have the courage to call them out. And people say to me, well, Sven, those aren't red flags. Because I always say red flag is just something that doesn't feel right to you. And people say, that's not real red flags. Red flags is violence. Red flags is them putting you down and things like that. And I'm like, it's bullshit. Shit, that's not a red flag. That's when your car has hit the fucking, bridge guardrail and you're in a full-blown accident. No, the red flag was 30 miles back when you noticed, or 3 miles back when you noticed that the speed limit went from 65 down to 45 and you didn't slow the fuck down. See, red flags, they don't start big. It never starts big, folks. It starts motherfucking small. Get this. You got to get this through your heads, guys. If you're waiting for them to do violence to you or just outright say, you're a fucking bitch and screaming at you and shit and spitting in your face, if you're waiting for that before you call it out, oh, you're fucked already. No, that shit always starts small. It starts by them blowing you off when they tell you they're going to show up, for this date. Maybe they show up an hour late. It starts when they're rude to you, just in a small way. It starts when they don't apologize. Or when you call them out for something and they deny it. That's where it starts. All those little things. And you aren't listening because you don't want to listen, or you were conditioned growing up, you were conditioned to believe that's not a red flag. That's just fucking no big deal. Your feelings don't fucking matter. This is why what we teach children, it imprints everything. What you teach them about their own feelings. And don't listen to you, little kid. This is your reality. This is what you should feel. Oh, that's no big deal. Great. Good setup, Dad. Nice job, Mom. Because you're teaching that child not to trust their own motherfucking feelings. So guess what's going to happen when they meet someone who does those things in smaller amounts? The kid's not even going to see it when they're 24 or when they're 36 or Christ almighty, when they're 52. They're not going to see it. Those fucking small things are going to whiz right by and they won't see it until the person is punching them in the face or kicking them in the gut or stealing their money or cheating on them. No, guys, red flags always fucking start small. And you got to have the balls to call that shit out, because if you don't fucking call that shit out, it's only going to grow. Small things become big things. This shit doesn't magically fucking heal itself. Your internal emotional trauma, problems in a relationship, they don't magically heal themselves. Do you know that a piece of research was done back in the 2000s that established that your average couple has been having problems in their relationship for 6 years before they ever get counseling? Think about that. In other words, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. We can take it. It'll go away. I'm sure it'll get better. No, I don't want to confront it. All that shit. Small things become big things. These problems don't fucking magically go away. So what that means is, in your own self-work or your work with your therapist, you've got to be getting out all your fears of, opening up again. But not just that, the fears of trusting yourself and acting on your voice, acting on your feelings when something doesn't feel good, when it's fucking small. Because if you don't do it when it's small, guess what it'll become? Medium. And guess what medium things become? Big. And guess what big things become? Fucking gargantuan. All right, guys, you got to start having the in-tuneness, the awareness of your own self. And you only do that by getting out all those other voices, which is why, I wrote my book. You guys have heard me say it a million times. This is why I wrote the fucking book, to help you guys begin to know your authentic self and to get out all the crud that keeps you from knowing your authentic self. The title is There's a Hole in My Love Cup. There's a workbook that goes with it. They've tried, other people, companies, shitty overseas companies have tried to create knockoffs of it. We had our legal team knock those fuckers down. So we've got There's a Hole in My Love Cup. It's available in Spanish, but you got to get in there and get those voices out, because that's what's keeping you from being fully present in your dating, in your relationships, and especially the whopper, your parenting. All right, guys, here we go.
Sven, over on YouTube, we have Brandon, who says, I'm stuck in a cycle of my fear of being hated and resented, preventing me from following through on removing myself from my unrepentant parents after emotional abuse.
Wait, start over. That's a whole lot of big words.
Okay. I'm stuck in a cycle of my fear of being hated and resented, preventing me from following through on removing myself from my unrepentant parents due to my emotional abuse. Any advice for working through that? He says he's taking steps to try, but the thought of his family resenting him for any reason, he always ends up coming back, and he's exhausted.
Right. And the reason you're eating all this shit from your family is because you're still wanting something from them. You're terrified of being alone. You're terrified of their wrath. You're terrified of them taking the pain out on you. You're terrified of being the family shit stick even more than you already have been. And so you're feeling the full pressure and wrath of the family, and that's keeping you locked in. But the mere fact, what's keeping you locked in is not just the fear, it's that you still want something from them. You are still holding out hope. Despite this long pattern of behavior of them treating you this way, you are still holding out hope that now maybe they'll give me the love I want. If I just play their game a little bit longer, if I just eat shit longer. And the truth is, the simple truth is this, Brandon, and it's ugly and it's a brutal fucking truth. And I go into this in the book, but it's one of life's greatest truths. Change will not occur until the pain gets bad enough. And for as bad as your pain is, Brandon, it ain't bad enough yet. Do you want to know how I know? Because you haven't stood up for yourself yet. And you say, Sven, I've stood up for myself. I just got done fucking telling you I've stood up for myself. No, you haven't stood up for yourself and not backed down. That's the difference. Where you just say, fuck it. You know, it's like, you just say, fuck it. I don't even care anymore. Fuck this shit. I'm going to stand up for myself. You guys want to hate on me. That's fine. But I'm going to shut this shit down. I'm going to stand up for myself. Damn the cost. And you know what that fundamentally is, Brandon? That is a statement of your confirmation of your worth. That is you saying, God damn it, I matter. That is you shouting to the heavens, I matter. And once you take that step, man, things begin to change because you're going to take it again. And if you can do it with the most important people in your life, the ones who have had the most power over you your whole life and still do, if you can take the step there, that's the scariest one. Then you'll begin to take it more and more. All right, next question. My husband rejected me for years. How do I get my sexual self back? Marie, that is actually a big problem that a lot of folks deal with. And this is not just a woman problem. I know a lot of guys. I've actually gone through this. I have. I got mocked by 2 different women that I was in long-term relationships with. I got verbally mocked about the size of my penis. All right, it's average. I'm average, no big deal. But I got mocked for it. And I got to be honest with you, it caused me to shut down and be sexually tentative. Do you want to know one other story? Send God's honest truth. I think I've told this maybe once before on the show. And the night I lost my virginity, I was Rob's like, oh God, what is this? And I was actually going into my senior year of high school, and my best friend and I had been to the 100 Twin Drive-In right there on the northeast side of Minneapolis. And his girlfriend had come join us. She was from New Brighton. We were from Fridley. And she had brought a friend of hers from Colorado. And we were just calling her Colorado. To this day, I don't know what her name is. And so Colorado and I made out in the back of their truck and all this. And then later, when the movies were done, I'm probably a doubleheader or whatever the shows were. And his girlfriend had, said, hey, you guys should come over later. We're sleeping outside. And what that meant in Minnesota in the 80s is not a lot of people had air conditioning in Minnesota in the 80s. And Minnesota summers are just brutal. They're hot, they're humid, whatever. Anyway, so we go over, and what they had, what her father had made was an outdoor screened-in area on their porch. So screened in, and they had 2 beds out there. Well, he and his girlfriend were in one bed, and then Colorado was in the other bed, and I hopped in there, and I had sex for the first time. And here's what happened. Do you want to know what happened? Literally, the second I rolled over and I had, done my thing. Do you want to know? My best friend and his girlfriend start giggling, and he says to me, Sven, slow down. So literally from my first sexual encounter, I was mocked. Now it was by somebody I loved, but that shit gets in your brain. And I know that seems unrelated, but it gets in your fucking brain. So when Marie Gustavino on Facebook says, my husband rejected me for years, how do I get my sexual self back? I totally get that shit. And there are a lot of guys who have been rejected by a woman that they loved or cared about, and it sticks. There are a lot of women who have been rejected, and it sticks. And that's serious shit, because sex is like one of the core fucking aspects, tenets, wants, drives in any relationship. How do you get it back? By getting the crud out, man. I've recommended to clients before, go to a sex therapist. There are some really good ones out there. There really are. But in the end, what's going to happen is you're going to have to go into those experiences, relive them, journal about how you're feeling, talk with your therapist about how you're feeling and what memories it brings up, and feeling it all over again because everything ultimately, any sort of trauma, any sort of negative messaging you're getting about yourself is going to store negative energy inside of you. And unless that is allowed an egress point, unless you flush that out, it's in there, it's blocking you. And the trust that you're having discomfort feeling and opening up and relaxing and letting down is because there's been pain in the past, which means there's fear of future pain, and that fear that's blocking you. So the more you actually get that experience or those memories that have those emotional charges attached to them, the more you decharge those memories, the less fear you have. And it goes back to the very first point I made on the show today, that ultimately love is about vulnerability. It's the opening of the heart. It's quite literally, the spreading of the legs. It's opening myself to another. What do puppies do when they are being vulnerable? What do they, and we even have a phrase over it in the English language. We show our belly. Show our belly. We expose our throat, the two vulnerable areas as mammals. We protect our throat and we protect our belly. Those are the vulnerable areas. So you'll be more likely to show your belly the more you get those fears out of you from the past pain. All right, next question. Darla asked the question on TikTok. How do I stop the instinct to help my adult kids and let them learn from their own experiences? By identifying what your fear is, and by also identifying what you're going to do or allow to happen if those fears come true. Because the fear is you are helping them because you fear something happening if you don't help them. Now, this could go two ways, right? Well, I fear them failing. I fear them not being happy. I fear them not being stable. I fear them experiencing pain. And that's legit. That's legit. You know, Rob has kids. I have kids. We get it. My kids are in their 30s. Rob's roughly the same, one a little bit older. And the bottom line is that's legit. You don't want to see your kids suffer. But let's be honest with you. Let's be honest with me here, Darla. You also fear, and maybe do you also fear that if I'm not helping, who the hell am I? If I'm not mothering, then what am I? You also fear that if something happens, then that's an indicator of my identity. Furthermore, who are you when you're not mothering, Darla? What are you going to do if you're not sort of intruding in your children's lives and letting them grow up? So it's the fear of what might happen to them, but it's also the fear of who am I if my kids do fail, or who am I if I'm not active in their life? Do I fear that they won't like me or love me or appreciate me if I'm not constantly worrying about them? No, this is more about your shit. You stop the instinct, and it's not just an instinct to help. It's a habit over time, but it's also a fear. And what you've got to identify, yet again, we're seeing it again, what you've got to identify is what that fear is. All right, we're going to have much more to come right after this short break.
I counseled with Badass Counseling for about 4 months, and Sven completely turned my life around. He kicked my butt. No shit. He made me do homework too, but I was so ready for a change that I just did it all. I'm telling you, he changed my life. Thank you so much, Badass Counseling.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform, and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
And we are back with a lightning round of the Badass Counseling Show. All right. And I just had someone ask here, very simple. Barbara asked the question, what if I'm too content being alone? Barbara, I'm going to ask the question, what does too content mean? I mean, and I'm not expecting your response. It's just sort of a facetious or a hypothetical. Too content. If you enjoy being alone, fucking be alone. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no script of life that says you have to be in a relationship. If that's what brings you joy, then be it. But the question you have to ask yourself really is this: am I doing it out of fear? Because then it's not content with being alone. Then it's I'm being alone because I'm terrified to engage. And if you're terrified to engage, well, then that's the deeper issue. Then you're hiding. You're rejecting life. You're rejecting the opening because you fear exposing your belly and your throat, so to speak, metaphorically speaking. All right? And then you've got to ask yourself, where's this fear coming from? What is the pain in my past that is causing me to fear the future? And the truth is you can still choose to be alone. There's nothing wrong with that, Barbara. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's clearly not what you want, because you wouldn't have a fear of being with someone unless a part of you wanted to be with someone. It wouldn't even be a blip on your radar. I mean, I fear alligators, but I don't really ever think about it. You want to know why? Because I'm nowhere near alligator country. I'm in the northeast of the United States. Or when I go back to Minnesota, I don't feel like fear alligators. We don't have alligators. They'd freeze in winter. Maybe there's one at the zoo. I don't know. Doesn't even think about it. No, you're thinking about fears. If you're fearing getting into a relationship, it's because a part of you wants it. which means you're not being your authentic self. You're staying hidden in your fears, and that's no answer. And now I'm not talking to you, Barbara. I'm talking to anyone. If you are staying in your fears, disengaging from life, you're not living your authentic self, because your authentic self, if you're doing it out of fear, fear implies a desire to do something that you're afraid of. All right? And so that's, you've just admitted you want to do it. So if you're not doing what you want to do because you are afraid, then you're not living your authentic life. So you got to identify those fears and flush those fears out, which means going back into the original pain sources that caused it and healing those, such as using tools in my book. There's a hole in my love cup, listening to the podcast, doing the journaling, doing the letter writing that you hear me talk about. All right, next question.
Got a good one here, Sven, from YouTube.
Rocket.
V. Young says, how do I help my son from his dad abandoning him? She says, my ex left us 7 years ago, but then came back 3 years ago, but has now gotten remarried and abandoned him again since. And they butt heads a lot. What's she to do?
How old is the son?
She doesn't say, but the ex left 7 years ago and came back 3 years ago, has gotten remarried, and does not say.
All right. And her question is, how do I help my son?
Yeah.
Well, the first thing you do is you get that child into counseling, period, end of story. The child is hurting. That is fact. And as you guys have heard me say on the show before, and I don't know how old your child is, so if they are a minor, they don't get a say in it. I'm sorry, they don't. And I'm going to tell you why. Because if your child breaks their arm and you don't go to a doctor to set that arm and to provide antibiotics, if skin was punctured and so on and so forth, if you don't do that, you'd be fucking taken to court for negligence. Why? Because that's going to heal wrong, potentially cause infection, potentially cause long-term medical harm to that child, physiological harm to that child. This stuff going on inside a child is no different, and many people would offer that it's worse.
18.
Kid is 18. Well, see, now it's a little trickier because you don't have dominion over the child, but you can recommend it. You can strongly recommend it. Hell, you can even leverage your position and say, listen, make an exchange for something, a quid pro quo on something, but you have to figure out a way to get that child into counseling, or at the very least, get them listening to a counselor. Send them some of my videos. They're all free. Send them the TikTok version. Kids like TikTok. They like Instagram. Send them those of some things, or get them hooked on somebody online that gets them, a therapist that gets them thinking in terms of self-care, because your child has a lot of pain in, and the worst possible thing for your son to do right now is to be happy. If you see your son happy, that's a problem. If you see your son sad, that's a good thing. Why? Because it shows they're letting their feelings out. It shows they're in touch with their feelings. The kids you want to be most concerned about are the ones who are happy. Why? Is happiness the absence of pain? No, it's the existence of pain and the capacity to stuff it down for now. So they'll stuff it down, and guess what's going to happen to your son if he doesn't get it out? It's going to bite him in the ass, and it's going to bite hard. And it's going to bite in his marriage. It's going to bite in his career. Because I'm sorry, you don't have that much rejection and neglect from one of your primary parents and not experience massive internal pain. And he's spending a lot of life energy stuffing it down. So do everything you can, Mom. Do everything you can to get that boy into counseling. Talking him into it, talking him through it, or encouraging it, or at the very least, get him to an adult that he trusts, perhaps a male, but adult that he trusts and would open up to, and one who is good at fucking listening and not just talking and ramming their own shit down the kid's throat. All right, next question. What's your thought about forgiveness and forgiving before we feel our anger? Totally against it. I am in favor of forgiveness, but I am not in favor of rushing forgiveness. There is no place in the world where it says you have to forgive right now. Forgive for yourself, but you got to do it right now. People say, forgive for the relationship. And other people say, no, you're not doing it for the relationship. You're doing it for your own self. Blah, blah, blah. Kumbaya, namaste. And I say, can we just back burner forgiveness? I'm all in favor of forgiveness. If you want to repair a breach in a relationship, fuck it. Go for it, man. God bless you. But the problem is, if you forgive someone before you get all of your pain, disappointment, fear, betrayal, hatred, anger, lethargy, all those feelings out of you, then you are fundamentally exonerating the other person, repairing a breach in a relationship, but your own feelings aren't coming out. So you're still wounded, which is why I get people all the time saying to me, oh, Sven, I forgave my father, or I forgave my wife, 2 years ago, but I still feel anger at times. Exactly. You rushed to the anger you rushed to the forgiveness without the healing. And the healing is getting all the pain, all the shit out of you, folks. If you don't do that, well, fucking hell, your forgiveness is just bullshit. Furthermore, if you're forgiving to repair the breach in their fucking relationship, you're not repairing the relationship. You want to know why? Because you're still pissed at the person, or you're still saddened by what they've done. In other words, you're not fully present in the relationship. So you're just playing pretend. Oh, let's play pretend house. Let's play pretend relationship. I'm going to pretend forgive you. I'm going to say the words. I'm going to really mean it. But the truth is, it's bullshit, because you still have these strong feelings of animus, disappointment, whatever it is, towards them. So you're fucking lying about the relationship, and you're fucking lying to yourself, because you sure as shit ain't fucking healed. So great question, Libra girl. Thank you. Next one. Rob, you got one? If not, I've got a few.
I do have one here.
All right.
I've been flushing out my feelings from my ex, but I'm struggling at times. I just can't understand how he told me he didn't want a relationship after rehab, but then he got married 4 months later.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but he was saying he didn't want a relationship with you. And he didn't have the courage to be honest, fully honest. And so there's really nothing to understand. It's just that he was flat out fucking lying. That when people do that, when people don't, and this is a pet fucking issue of mine, man, fake breakups or the slow walk out of a relationship. When you do that, or you say, I'm not sure, I want to take a separation because I'm not sure, or I just need time to think. More often than not, that person already fucking knows they want out, but they don't have the balls to look you in the face. So they figure if they create some separation now, that'll ease the blow on you later, but more importantly, it'll make it easier for them to just sort of trickle away, slink out the back door. It's just like, you fucking pain-inducing fuck. Just have the courage to look the person in the face, tell the truth, take your lumps, take your medicine. They're going to be pissed. They're going to maybe try to talk you out of it, all these things. But you got to end it. And one more caveat, folks. If you know you're done, do not say to the person that you are breaking up from, well, maybe in the future. Don't fucking say that. And you want to know why? Because you're leaving the door open. And guess what? You're doing it because you don't have the balls to fucking end it. And let me tell you what's going to happen. If they think there's hope in the future, and I see a lot of guys hearing that from women, and I'm sure there are lots of women hearing it from guys too, so I'm not going all gender here, but I know how guys get when the door's been left open a little bit. They're just like fucking, like, they're either like little puppies, and they will trail you around very pathetically, and I have been that pathetic puppy, trust me. So I'm dogging my old self as much as anyone, but they'll follow you around. They'll do anything. They'll call you up, and it gets sappy and it gets clingy. And then you're going to have the hard conversation later. So you're just kicking that can down the road, as we like to say here in the States. You're just kicking that can down the road. You're not dealing with the problem today, and it's going to bite you in the ass harder. But then the other way they might go, if it's not sort of the puppy, it's the full court press, the sort of aggressiveness and the sort of getting angry and so on and so forth. And maybe you fear them turning on you if you actually tell the truth, but it's worse if you keep them in your life, man. You got to cut that shit and cut it hard. And you got to find your strength to do it. And it's hard. It's hard to break up with someone. It's hard to look someone in the face or get a divorce, knowing you're breaking their heart and having to deal with their backlash or they're wanting to work it out. And so then you'll give in and it's like, okay, we can try working it out, but you already know you don't want to work it out. Just truth is hard, but people deserve the truth. Do it for them, even if it's hard for you. Come on, folks. Everybody bemoaning these younger generations when there are plenty of us old fuckers in our 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s not having the courage to tell the truth in fucking relationships. So don't fucking bemoan these younger generations. We're just as cowardly as they are. Okay? We're the ones slinking around, not looking people in the face and telling the truth. Come on, find your fucking World War II generation parents' strength and courage and stand up, or Korea generation, stand up, look a person in the face and have the balls to tell them the truth, right? All right. I'm going to take one more question. All right. And I've got it right here. Actually, I've got two. I want them both. All right. And Ashley Perry asks, why is it hard to set limits on people access to me? That's actually a great question. And that's something I struggle with in my business. I'll wake up at 3 in the morning and I'll be laying in bed answering people's questions. I get 1,000 questions at least, texts, DMs, voicemails. I can't get to more than, anywhere near them, but I try to now and then when I'm feeling it. And a friend of mine who actually a former client, very, very successful when I had my office in Manhattan and ran a hedge fund and all this stuff. And he said, Sven, you've really got to do that, because if you are giving too much, like your old man would always teach you, Sven, and your mom would teach you, you'll burn out. But not only will you burn out, you're robbing from Peter to pay Paul. And Paul is this stranger you're trying to help, and you already do a lot of that in your work, Sven. But the people you're robbing from are your girlfriend or your own kids or your buddies that you want to hang out with, or just your own self and your need for aloneness, because that's a big deal for you, Sven. And so when you say, You just brought up that you struggle with, why is it hard to set limits on people access to me? There's a fear operating there, and it could be the fear of them not liking you. It could be the fear of them thinking less of you in your work. It could be the fear of I'm not a good person if I don't say yes to every last person. You could have been raised by extreme givers who were wonderful parents, but they somehow you got the message that your worth is tied up in how much you give, or the only chance you have of getting love is by giving. And so what you've got to go into is you got to drill down to find out what those core beliefs are that you were taught about yourself, about your identity, and about your role in the world. And again, I know I'm a broken record, but that's what the book is for. There's a hole in my love cup. It's going to take you down there and help you identify those core beliefs that are driving you that you're not even fucking aware of. All right. Last question. Yes, I do private sessions. Go onto the website, badasscounseling.com, and read the counseling page. Then reach out to my assistant on the contact page. Is there an audible version of your book? This is one I get a lot, and I want to clear this up. The book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, there is an audiobook version. I took it off of Audible. I am not a fan of Audible because they're not selling books, they're selling subscriptions. And so if you were to go on Audible right now and type in some book you like, do you know how hard it is for you actually to buy one book if you've never been on Audible before? They want you to buy the subscription, and they fuck over authors on royalties and unilaterally changing ticket prices. So the audiobook version of all of my books, more of them, we've got 2 so far on audiobook, but they are available on my website, badasscounseling.com. And we actually recorded it right here in studio. Rob did all the recording and the mastering and the music. He arranged the music as well. And so and that's for Badass Wisdom, but There's a Hole in My Love Cup. Yes, it is available at badasscounseling.com. All right. And I'm looking for that magical final question before we shut her down. And here we go.
I'm here for you if you need one.
Oh, well, then go for it, Rob. Give it to me.
All right, here's one on YouTube. It's from Jay in Tennessee, who says, I've been feeling like doing nothing but sitting around and watching time pass by. I've been apathetic and depressed about what I should do in my life, been feeling stuck and lost.
And Jay, you don't indicate a question, but it's sort of implicit. You're indicating what you've been going through, and this is clearly abnormal for you and likely potentially scares you or you don't understand it. Jay in Tennessee is feeling drawn down and lethargic and sort of coming down into a depression, something like that. Let me tell you something that changed my life, the thinking that sort of changed my life. And it was about, 30 years ago, one of the many changes. And I remember I was reading an author by the name of James Hillman. He actually ran the Jung Institute in Switzerland for a while, American psychiatrist. And he was talking about the idea of depression as a calling down, that our soul is calling us down for a purpose. And that ultimately we've been racing around, we've been distracting ourselves, we've been taking pills or booze or overworking or overparenting or gambling, or we've been running from all the shit, all the pain, all the thoughts, all the fears, all the stuff from our past. And the depression is our soul calling us down to solitude, to finally face it and heal. And it's not just a matter of feeling it and perseverating and thinking about it, but it's a matter of going into it and trying to, using tools such as self-help tools, such as good therapy, to go into it and to begin to draw out that pain, the fears, and the bullshit beliefs you were taught about yourself from your past. So that very thing that you are worried about and that you are experiencing, Jay, is a blessing. It is the blessing of your own soul calling you down to finally heal. And so the question is, do you have the courage to do it? And are you going to put the right tools into your hands such as a therapist, or such as the book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, which is just one. And there are others out there. In my book, I list 9 other books that are great for this. There's that great one by Debbie Ford, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. Great book. Now, one of the books I recommend constantly to my clients, and it's a Bible of mine, I didn't write it, but that I go to, and that's Living in the Light by Shakti Gawain. And so there are great tools out there, but your soul is, folks, if you're dealing with depression, if you're dealing with anxiety, what if you were to change your frame of reference and put the term on it of, this is a blessing of the soul? It doesn't feel like it, but it is. It's calling you down into yourself, down into the depths of the ocean, down into the belly of a whale, so to speak, for your healing, to face the depths and the truths and the hurts, so that you may finally be spit back out onto shore and begin life again. Use the depression as an opportunity to finally heal. My fine humans, I love you guys so much, all you fucking badasses. I love kicking ass with you tonight. We had, just on TikTok alone, we had over 15.5 thousand people come through and hang out with us and offer questions and so forth. But to all of you, I love your questions. I love the insights. And I love that you guys are having these side conversations. It's like going to a bar. I was a bartender for years, Rob. And I've probably told you this, but one of the goals of any great bartender is not just mixing great drinks and not just communicating with your people, but getting them talking to each other. That's when you begin to create a cheers. That's when you begin to create your own community. Yeah. And so I love seeing you guys talking to each other and encouraging each other, or, hey, have you thought about this sort of thing? Thoughts?
It really helps, Sven. One time I remember a therapist said to me, sometimes, Rob, all you need is a bartender.
Amen. Well, that could be saying more than one thing, Rob.
Not for the drink. Just somebody's going to give it to you straight.
That's right. And also listen.
Yeah.
And listen. And you know what? Let's let that be the coda to the song tonight. And the coda is, if you got kids in your life, I remember I had a fella live just down the street. He was a member of our church. Dad was the pastor, and I was their paper boy. And I was a paper boy in a few different neighborhoods growing up, but I remember the one behind the church. And his name was Richard Silverstein. He lived at 6675 East River Road.
Don't write to him.
Oh, no. Richard's been dead for probably 40 years. And I adored Richard Silverstein and his wife, Ida Bell. And Richard took me under his wing. And he had been a chief warrant officer in the military. He had been an educator. And he had converted from Judaism to Christianity. And he was a Mets fan, Rob. We used to sit and watch his Mets just like you. And he listened more than he talked. And he asked questions about me, and I felt so heard. And my father, for as much of a saint as he was a terrible listener. Great man, one of the finest men I've ever met, but he wasn't the best at listening. He talked a lot. So to be in the company of a man who listened and who wanted to ask me questions and ask another question, and then another question, was like balm to my soul. If you've got kids in your life, listen, ask them questions, and not just as an opening for you to talk next, but to make them feel heard. It's like giving someone a bouquet of flowers. All right, fine badasses, I love you all. On behalf of the team here, to all of you around the world, from Australia to Hawaii to Fridley, Minnesota, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.